are watching CIOTV by Enterprise IT World, a production of Accent Infomedia.
And first of all, welcome everyone. And definitely, it's a very key topic that we're going to discuss. But before that, we understand that the pace and that knowledge sharing happened in the last two sessions, the keynote, it is really great. Since people are talking about, Narayan talking about the AI, how the adoption is really great. And before that, the robotics, oh, phenomenal. So definitely, before start with that, one of the key questions that everyone want to understand from all of you, the esteemed panel, that how are all the emerging technologies, be it say Gen AI, automation, or IoT, currently impacting the business? And that's the key question. I will start with Argha.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Let's start off with, I think we'll try and combine the three together to see how things progress. First of all, I think earlier speaker touched upon user experience or customer experience. That has been one of the biggest, I would say, the way towards benefit that we are seeing AI and the machine learning that combines together. So that is one aspect of it. And then second is obviously what I would call is the way we are looking at maintenance, right? So it could be a preventive maintenance or preemptive maintenance that could be there, which is important. And with AI, a lot of, I think if you look at the engines in the planes, they have the sensors, or any of the factory operations now have sensors. So that's one aspect of it, which is now bringing across. Third is obviously in terms of how from a cybersecurity perspective, it is becoming a key factor to it, primarily because with AI ML integrated into the tools and technologies now, it's becoming quite easy for people to kind of preempt incidents, as well as look at the impact that might happen, or preempt an impact that might happen earlier in the game itself. Fourth is something that it's if people are in the sports and people like sports, you would have seen a lot of footballers now where a jacket behind and you have a hump at the back. Now that is it. In a stadium we see 11 players across both of the teams playing, but back end so much of data operations are happening. Each player is getting monitored as to when and what is the fatigue status and what are the parameters that is going on. So that's also kind of driving that. And the other part is also look at the last mile impacts. So if say a miner going down the deep mine itself, if the way that we can monitor that miner going across is also important. So I think taking all this account and automation obviously binds all this together. So I think there's a lot of positives that are happening within the industry itself.
What's your thought process about?
Okay. So, okay. Oh, you don't have a mic now? Okay. All right. Hi, I'm Kumar Prasoon. I'm the group CIO for Twyn, and this is a very relevant question actually for us because we specialize in industry, I should say, industry 5.0, and I'll request all of the CXOs here and my old friends to have a visit to our stall and just have a look at the real-time industrial metaverse. Okay. Coming back to the question, I'll talk about a problem statement and the way Sir mentioned, and I'll talk about a solution and how basically it helped. Think about a typical mission-critical infrastructure like an oil rig, So that's my favorite example which I take. So right now, if you look at the oil rig, so now the situation is, you're talking about a number of sensors and OT systems, which is the operational technology systems, DCS, distributed control systems, SCADA solutions, And then you have so many adapters, protocols, actuators. Sorry, I'm getting technical, but because it's a very technical question, so I'm trying to cover, this part. And now imagine all this plethora, which are in such a standalone silos, I should say. How, in the current situation, the best of the systems in the SCADA, they are operating on multiple screens. And their batch screen, the batch data pooling, which means the data transfer process is also somewhere synchronous, somewhere asynchronous, and you don't have an overall view of the whole, holistic view of the whole data. Think about one concretization of the solution where you have all these screens and with all those physical assets. So basically it is covering all the three parts: industrial automation, robotics, AI, and also digital twins I'm adding from my side. So think about a digital twin which is actually integrating with all the verticals of data. I'll call it more like a data vertical rather than data silos. And then finally you are having the physical assetization as a virtual replica with the data, with 95% data being AI ETL'd. ETL means extraction, transformation, and loading. So being ATI ETL, and then finally showing that fuzzy analytics on that 3D replica. This is the level of automation today people are thinking of, and this is what the future is. That's what we very proudly call industrial metaverse. So this is a typical example what we have done for one of the largest oil rig in the Middle East. Second example I want to give you is from one of the auto manufacturers, one of the world's largest named ones, in which basically think about a forging press, typical forging press, and which is used to prepare the auto parts. And imagine most of the part is underneath. I mean, and you don't have any visibility of those systems. How you can integrate those sensors and systems to bring a logical value into this platform where the digital metamorphosis, the enterprise digital metamorphosis can be really taken to the next level. So this is my viewpoint on two live use cases integrating all the three parts of a question. Thank you very much.
Very valid thing, Prasoon. Really appreciate that you shared the use cases. And definitely I'd like to understand from Dinesh, who is from the the logistic part, and how the transitioning happening, means from your perspective, all those new technologies that we are talking about, be it a buzzword called Gen AI, generative AI, and how it is impacting the business.
So again, nice to be here. Dinesh from TVS Supply Chain. Just want to, if I can take just a few seconds, Argha was talking about how analytics or data is really, used from all the players, the football players going back and forth and capturing that. And we were just having a conversation just last week as to why did USA beat a few teams up front in the league and then lost in the Super 8s. And they were saying that there was probably no data about them playing. How do they play? How do they bowl at all, right? Of course, this is more from a jokes perspective, but I think the fact is that that is a reality in every mode of life that, where we are seeing today. So back on, from a logistics perspective, I think, in my view, any businesses ranging from MSME to big multinational firms are using these technologies to kind of really figure out how do they up their value chain, right? And how do they really figure out how can they leapfrog with respect to their competitors. So I think it's imperative that most organizations are starting to use this. And I think from a logistics perspective, I think it's no different, right? If you look at it, all of these technologies are really helping us improve our productivity, right? Reducing cost. These are basic things, but that's what it is helping in where we do. And we use a lot of these technologies, right? We talked about some of the industry there, where we work with our customers in terms of warehouse, some of the automations that we use there across. Of course, these automations vary from region to region and sector to sector. The West market, a lot of those, I think the previous speaker talked about how it is more rampant out there in the Western versus India is still picking up. But the use of automated, the AGVs, or even remote working forklifts, or any of these machines out there that are using in the warehouses today, these are now getting operated remotely. In fact, these are things we are piloting to say, why can't we run our forklifts and machines in the US warehouses from India? Like, that's kind of what we are looking at to kind of completely, So I think there's various cases of this that, and I think we can talk more as we go along.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is a very valid thing and really appreciate that, Dinesh. So, Venkat, I'd like to understand, you also coming from a logistic, and then definitely, what is your perspective or the point of view about this? How all the new technology is impacting the business? What is the roadmap that we are thinking of?
Yeah, one thing that I would say is, unlike a couple of years back when we used to talk about these technologies as a futuristic sentence, like when Gen AI comes, when automation comes. Of course, to be fair, automation has been there forever. To be fair, but at least on the Gen AI aspect, one thing that I see primarily is the data, the new oil that we all refer that as, is the center of everything. In the initial part, Ravi made an excellent point about the customer experience. Narendra followed it up with the component pertaining to the customer experience being the center. And to make any customer experience or to plan anything and identify the use cases that Argha was mentioning or Dinesh was mentioning, one thing that is very important is about the data. So what IoT is doing is generating data. And what automation and Gen AI is doing, Gen AI and automation are using that data to make the right decisions and to fast pace the decision making and deployment, and thereby having that experience of falling fast in case we actually make a wrong decision because of hallucination or any specific reason. So I think the underlying layer is data. Some is creating that data, and others are consuming that data burst to make right decisions and to make the fast pacing of this overall business decision, keeping the customer experience in the center. I think that is how I picture this whole story.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, that definitely understand that it is so much of challenges also we have to data and how we can going to integrate this. So Dinesh, I have a questions for you that what is your thinking process in terms of that integrating these technologies? Because in the boardroom always we're talking about what's the GNI we are doing, how we are going to integrate with the other technologies, be it automation, RPAs that we have, or be it say IoT. Because I believe logistics sector have too many things or the use cases that we have. So how are we going to integrate, or what is the challenges that you are going to?
So I think Narayan covered this. I think to me, the first challenge that I see is probably organizations' readiness to adopt these technologies. Right? I think he gave some statistics on 44% of the, to me, I think, and that goes in people, technology, and process. Right? If you look at all of these aspects, are the people out there ready to accept this? Are the end users ready to accept it because of failure of the jobs getting taken out? Absolutely. IT, is the technology teams ready for this? Do we have the skill sets for that? Right? Some of this will take some good amount of training and adaptability to bring in here. So to me, I think that is one fundamental thing that I look at. The second, again, I think is, again, depending on the organization's ability to spend, the cost of doing this is not, it's prohibitive, right? It could be the skill sets, on one side, it is the computational resources that you need to run these large models, to bring these data. You talked about the quality of the data and all of that stuff. And for big organizations with limited resources, I think that's a second challenge that I see. The third one that I can call out is probably, again, there's probably a lot, but I'm just thinking the top three in terms of security, privacy, and ethicalness, right? I think, again, Narayan used the word responsible AI, right? I think inadvertently these models today are probably either, creating, I think he talked about the word AI hallucination, he talked about the word, are they bringing in some bias, right, the algorithm bias as part of that? And of course, we have to honor their privacies and, since a lot of these are open source, how do you ensure that you're not losing the IPs on that, right? So these are probably the top three that we probably are worried about in our company.
How about you, Argo, about this? What is the challenges that you're facing, or how you are thinking that integrating this, all the technologies in the business perspective?
Yeah, I think one that we have to kind of understand is there will be a legacy system that's running, right? Versus we have brought in a new technology now. And in that aspect, what will happen is that there is to be a marriage that needs to happen. And most of the time that does not happen, right? Second is that even if the marriage happens, the data may not be compatible when we want to kind of utilize them or share them. So there is a lot of data messaging that needs to go through. Third that I see, and I think that was touched upon by an earlier speaker on this, is the skill and the steep learning curve that existing workforce might need to kind of go through to be able to utilize the technology and be able to kind of leverage that, right? Fourth, obviously, is security, and since I'm a cybersecurity professional by what I do, is I'd like to kind of highlight that there are a lot of challenges in terms of data leakages happening, and when IoT comes across, it's a last mile. It is very difficult to kind of identify rogue devices that might crop up. And if you do not have visibility, you cannot protect. And that's a classical security problem that we have, right? So I think these are 3 or 4 things that from my perspective, I see are key challenges actually.
Yeah, thank you so much, Argo. Prasoon, I have a question for you that definitely we understand the challenges, how we are integrating, what is the skill gap, definitely even Narayan also talk about in his presentation. So what is the strategies business should adopt in this integrating these technologies?
Good. So actually, there's a multi-dimension aspect to this particular question actually. So if I'll look at this from an enterprise architecture point of view, being an enterprise architect, so one is the business architecture, which is very, very critical because I mean, all these verticals which I'm talking about, they have to marry with each other. They have to be all integrated together. So one is the business architecture. Second is the information or data architecture. Third is the application architecture. And fourth is what you call infrastructure architecture. Then, basically, from a TOGAF framework point of view, all these domains like business, infrastructure, technology, and application, they all have to be strategized, and we need to have a strategy architecture. As I mentioned in my last talk about the conversation which are happening between multiple systems and subsystems. So you need to have an EIS, which is an external interface specifications. You need to have an adapter. You have to actuator. For example, SAP. So you have SAP ABB Knowledge Manager with Matricon OPC interface, which is the open, different technologies. Honeywell, different technologies. Siemens, SCADA, different protocols, different technologies. So now the biggest challenge for the CIO is actually the aggregation of all these frameworks. That's the reason something known as Unified Enterprise Architecture Framework is the first step one should be taking forward. Especially these organizations, they should always go for EAO transformation. Now, what is EAO transformation? Enterprise Architecture Organization Transformation. The people call it creating a digital enterprise. Now, the first thing of creating a digital enterprise is to form up your own enterprise architecture strategy. Because if that is there, then only the different business architecture points can talk to the application, they can be configured to the application, and then applications can be configured with the right kind of data structure. And then finally, the whole analysis can be done on what kind of infrastructure is required to host the whole business application, and then how this the strategy is there to scale up, for example. Scaling is something which is very critical, especially in integration, right? It's a big question. How it's going to scale up, how the resources are going to be consumed. So cloud optimization. So whether how the infrastructure is going to be used, how the cloud, now if you do that cloud optimization, what is important in basically doing the right kind of setting up the whole data governance process, where the data is going, where data privacy, coming back to your point. So data privacy, how you are maintaining the data privacy, that's also very critical. So I have tried to identify the various important components which we are actually on the ground facing every day. And basically I thought to mention it as a part of a question and answer to a question. So yeah, so that's what exactly it is. So we definitely ought to bring an enterprise architecture organization transformation culture. And that's what I call a true digital transformation.
Got it. Venkata, I would like to understand, that's definitely understand the roadmap, understanding challenges. Now, what will be the long-term vision? Being a CIO, definitely you have a roadmap. That's how we're going to leveraging all those technologies to lay down the roadmap for that. Because every day we are thinking of the new technologies, and definitely it is not talk about the Gen AI. Currently we are talking about IoT, right? And Prasoon have highlighted all the enterprise architecture. So as per you, what should be the long-term vision for business?
There are a couple of things that I can think of. The first one, I think Prasoon nailed it perfectly, that you need to take a couple of steps back and understand the holistic picture on what is the current status as is and what is the to be status. See, technologies will be there and new things will be coming in fast pace. But identifying the as is state and identifying the to be state based on the business requirements, and then drawing that journey with identifiable, measurable milestones is the first thing that we should do. And for that, like Prasoon mentioned, we need the enterprise architecture team to come and sit and understand it by taking a couple of steps back and drawing that journey. Then use the most recent technology that is available, identify the business deliverables and the milestones and keep measuring that, and then comes the point that Argha was mentioning about skilling the team to not only deploy but also to consume. That is equally important. Especially I see that 3 of us are from non-technical companies. So the end user appetite to appreciate the latest things that are happening and how to put that to use even in the consumption pattern is very critical. And at the end of the day, we need to remember, we are as strong as our weakest link. You may have the best of the architecture, best of the tool. And I still remember, some people come and say, hey, everyone praises SAP being an example, okay? But we couldn't get benefit out of it. Yeah, SAP is as best a tool as you deploy, as you use, and as you put that, in operation. If you put it and keep those licenses and CDs in our safety deposits, it's not going to be useful for us. So the utilization of it is equally important. So I think those are the 3-4 components.
Dinesh, you want to try? What's your vision on this?
Yeah, I think covered a couple of the points, but 2 points if I want to add on top of what Venkat just said. One is, I think you need to bring in the culture of the organization to kind of start to adopt this. Whether you want to call it a culture of innovation, you want to call, I think that has to start to set in. I think the company and us has to start to set that in, because that will then enable us to, if we have to deploy any of these new technologies, how do we kind of gradually bring that and integrate that into their business life, and how that is successfully done, right? So to me, I think that's a key part that I think we should do. Outside of that, I would only, the other thing that I would suggest is, some of these new technologies are not brought into the your governance, right? Today, as an enterprise, as a CIO, we have an IT governance in terms of what we do, how we bring in systems and all this stuff. I think some of the newer technologies are probably incubated in certain areas, and how do you start to also bring that into the governance? How do you start to see the value of that? Because it's good to start small on some of these initiatives, but at some point of time, you need to start to see how does it start to bring the value? How does it start to bring the ROI? So I think that as you part to bring it into your overall governance, I think that will start to see the the end value from it is what I would think.
Prasoon?
I agree with all my fellow friends, CIO friends, and one thing which I want to add apart from what I mentioned is there's one major component which I think we have unintentionally skipped is the change management. Yeah, without that, and I'm talking very closely to his point, which is like whatever architecture you have, that give me a really thought process. That's something we are missing in this conversation. To sum it up, is the change management. Now, change management itself is a doctorate thesis, is on a very serious note because you have end users of, I mean, you can't have an ontology for taxonomy for end users, right? I mean, class 1, class 2, class N. I mean, that's what exactly I have seen so far in my career. And how to basically create a true value with the end users. I think years back, I defined fuzzy analytics of the SRS, not a software requirement specification, but the RUP has defined an SRS, which is known as the stakeholder requirements specification. So stakeholder requirements specification, if we have an analytics of it, in which just like your credit score, if we have the SRS score, so if the stakeholder requirement specification is meeting certain index, which out of 5, you know what I'm saying? And if we can rate that, trust me, we can, because that's directly proportional to change management index. So change management, we can directly say, that this organization is ready for the digital transformation. So if it's just like your temperature, right? Thermometer temperatures, it will act like a temperature controlling device. Yeah. So that index. So that's very, very important. Change management is very crucial. Otherwise, you ought to combat the long battle of getting where the whole thing is going to eat your profitability and definitely the bottom line.
Quickly, I have to just
I think yeah.
Go any quick points that you can.
No, I think everybody's talked about from architecture to the execution piece of it, change management piece of it. Let me touch upon the people piece of it, right? I think that's also important primarily because people, acceptance is going to be a bigger challenge, right? Adopting these technologies, where people are, in a sense, organizations is not very clear to the value that they will get end of the day, or the ROI and the post these expenditures. The second is also when people are very scared about losing their jobs, which has been the big talking point. People have to be made sure that they understand that things will coexist and coexist for a better enhancement, and that is where a lot of people's usage and adoption can come through. I think that is one point that I wanted to kind of specifically talk about.
Sure, thank you so much, Argha. Means really this understanding from all the conversations from the last few minutes, we are talking about how we are strategically adapting these technologies, how the challenges we are facing, what's the roadmap we are thinking of as a CIO, and how we can get this adapted, be it a people front, be it a architecture front. And really, it is one phenomenal understanding, and definitely we have to think that how we can go ahead and we can lay down the plan where all the perspective to meet and we can think about business growth. So with that, I can wrap up for now, and thank you so much, the dear panelists. It's really great to connect with you all, and it's an important topic. Thank you. Thank you, team.